might have this rigid chassis, but does that make up for everything else that it's lacking? Naranja dipstick. Doesn't really deserve to be a decent handling car, does it? Now then, YouTube, this is a Honda Jazz. If you go to any decent gala bingo car park, this is what you're gonna see. This is also a Honda Jazz, but this one's a little bit different. Not just that it's yellow, not just that it's got some nice wheels on it, something else going on as well. Some of you will have already seen this, but there's something special going on underneath this tiny little bonnet. Naranja dipstick. You might have seen it before. It's Pete's Honda Jazz and he's selling it. He wants to get rid of it. I said, before you do that, Pete, you're gonna have to let me make a video on it, because I wanted to make a video on it for a while. Now, a K24 powered Honda Jazz, there's a few of them about now, right? This is not the only one in the world. You'll have seen a few on the internet, and famously there was one appeared on Best Motoring, or was it Hot Version, years ago.
Jay's Racing Fit GT. The engine unit has been upgraded to 2.4 liters.
And it got, you know, massively complimented, and, you know, there's been memes for days on Honda Jazzes since those videos. Now, as I said, Pete's selling this, he's getting rid of it. It's still for sale. I mean, this isn't an advert by any means, but as of doing this video, it's still for sale. But before it goes, I wanted to do a video on it because I think it is something special. And I don't think I'll ever see another one, because, you know, there's plenty of K-Swap cars out there at the minute, but how many K-Swap Jazzes are there? And I've not driven a Jazz before either, so let's find out if the memes have any substance. Does it actually drive okay? Because it shouldn't really. I know they say they've got a real rigid chassis, which, you know, there's plenty of proof out there for that, but if you look at the suspension, I mean, it's a beam on the back and, you know, McPherson fronts, it's, you know, it's pure shopping trolley material. It doesn't really deserve to be a decent handling car, does it? But, you know, some people say they do, and some people really getting enthusiastic about how a Jazz drives. So I guess we'll find out. So the spec of this car is not too extreme. It's a K24 engine, EP3 gearbox. It's got an aftermarket inlet manifold, and it's been remapped. So we're talking about 230-ish horsepower. Is that enough in a Jazz? Should be, shouldn't it? Now the interior, completely original, pretty much, apart from a steering wheel and of course the shifter. Everything else, yeah, hasn't even been touched. Certainly hasn't been stripped out or messed about with inside. I'm pretty sure the BMW is still bigger, Anton. I mean, it's not a bad boot. Obviously having that beam rear suspension and, you know, all the room for all the shopping. Okay, I really want to find out if these cars actually drive any good. One of the things that Josh always says about suspension on these, it's like a Fiesta. Now a Mark 6 Fiesta, if you've driven one, does drive pretty good. Is this like a Mark 6 Fiesta with a more rigid body, you know? Is the chassis just a bit stiffer? Does it actually drive any good? And how does it take having 3 times more power than what it was supposed to have? So let's get the cameras set up, go for a drive. Right, here we go then. Honda Jazz. We've got a bit of straight road in front of us just to get used to the power. Nice Z3 coming the other way. Yep, it's definitely fast. So we're going to go for a little drive and just find some corners. Because what we want to be really testing here is how it feels. Because there's so much noise online about how Honda Jazz's drive and how rigid they are. You know, people are leaning towards trying to say that they're a really good handling car, and that's what we need to decide. It's definitely got the power. It's got a K24. Let's say we're about 3 times what the power of a normal Jazz would be. Does the seat go any lower? Does the seat height adjust? I don't think it does. Okay, we'll mark it down 1 for there. Definitely feels like I'm sat on the Jazz rather than in the Jazz. Do a little pull here. This is of course a K24, not a K20, so you get that extra torque all the way through the rev range, but you don't have as high a rev limit. I think they said the rev limit was just shy of 8,000, so you know, still not a low rev limit by normal standards, but for VTEC standards, 8,000 RPM's pretty modest, but pretty typical on a K24. Let's do a bit of an accelerate through this corner. Woohoo, it torque steered like a bitch then, coming out of there. That really did torque steer. Wow. Right, let's see if this superior rigid chassis is any good. Left foot braking. Oh. Residential. I've got Josh sat at the side of me, but you can see his shoulder. Josh is guiding us around these roads.
It's quite a long. It's like a double apex right into like a hairpin.
This one here.
You can go around it, and then it's like
Torque steers a bit, doesn't it?
yeah.
It's not slow.
It's faster than it should be.
I was just saying, it kind of, you know, like when you drive a Civic, and it feels like it's just taking the speed very well.
Yeah.
This feels more like it's not meant to be this fast.
Yeah, that's it. Exactly.
Which kind of makes it a bit more exciting, but at the same time a bit more like, oh shit, you have to be on your toes. Right, we'll try not to go as high in the revs this time. We'll just try and get a feel for the chassis rather than actually trying to razz the tits off of it. Bounced a bit there, Josh. It's always hard for anyone to get any kind of idea on a road car chassis just blasting about stuff like this. I mean, it doesn't feel bad by any means. It's still fun. But it just feels like it's skipping a bit. It does torque steer though. Have you noticed?
Yeah.
Whoa. It was going for apex in then, wasn't it? This is the thing, right? You know when people do these car reviews and you see them and they're like, oh, it drives good and all this, and like, they're just saying what people want to hear, you know, they're not actually, because it's impossible to get a proper feel for a car in just like a blast down a country road.
To be honest, a lot of the people that do it won't even know how to
Exactly, man. Yeah.
Feeling that anyway.
That's what it winds me up, stuff like that. That's why we're changing the face of YouTube, Josh. One video review at a time. It'd be nice to have like the same road that you go down every time, but
Yeah.
soon get the police involved. But I think they do that on like Top Gear and all that. And, like Chris Harris always goes to that one road in Wales. I don't know if you've noticed. Got talk for days, isn't it? Well, I'm having a lot of fun driving this, but I'm just going to be repeating myself if I try and tell you how it feels. It feels like we shouldn't be going this fast. That's the bottom line. It's still a lot of fun to drive like any car is, but it's not the same as a Kswap EG or a Kswap Integra. Now when we do get back to HCR, I will get the tripod back out and we'll have a bit of a conclusion. I'll try and tell you how this feels better than what I can do now, because at the minute I'm just trying to concentrate a little bit too much. And we've got this big daft truck in front of us at the minute. So one thing that's definitely apparent with this, if I can see, oh, we've got some visors. The interior it's just a Jazz, it's a Jazz, but it's the torque steer what I want to talk about. I'm not brave enough to drive with no hands on the wheel, that would be very stupid. But if I just relax my grip a little bit and then allow the car to pull me where it wants, it's pulling me. Torque steer. You know, I've said it already, but we've got 3 times the power that Honda thought was enough for this. I mean, it was never meant to be a fast car, and these cars have got the cult status that they have in some parts of the car community, let's say, you know, because of videos, because of people like Mr. Spoon telling people just how rigid the chassis is. And okay, I'm going to be honest, it just feels like a regular old shopping car to me. I can't see anyone being at the drawing board in Honda and thinking, we need to make sure that car's got a rigid chassis just in case any enthusiasts buy it. They knew what they were making with this. Whoa, what the holy shit. No one told me we had a sunroof. Right, that's it, it's achieved cool status. If any of the cars that I review in the future have got sunroofs, then you get an instant 5 Scott Mills point bonus. Now I'm going to think of something like that. It's going to be a complete copy of Doug's scores, but you know, maybe Dan's score, just so make it a bit different. But we'll think of a way to start rating cars in the future. Not the Honda Jazz just yet, I don't think. Maybe we'll have to review it and add it at a later date, but this video is the first of many, hopefully. As I said, Pete's getting rid of this. I wanted to have a go in it, see what it was like, and of course I wanted to make a video on it because it's a special car. K24 powered Honda Jazz. It would be really nice to try it on circuit. I don't know if it's just the K24 effect or not, but it feels real fast, and then you hit VTEC and then it's like, whoa. Maybe it's just the old, you know, we're in a Honda Jazz effect. I'll never get bored of doing that on a Honda. Okay, we're almost back at HCR HQ, so let me just go get settled. I'll gather my thoughts together and we'll conclude this video. I think you can probably tell what I'm going to say though. So then, the K24 powered Honda Jazz. What do we think to it? Well, I'm a little bit surprised, but I shouldn't be. It is a Honda Jazz at the end of the day. It's definitely not a Civic or an Integra when it comes to a K-Swap. As I briefly mentioned when I was driving the car, the way those 90s Hondas with the double wishbone and things take to these modern powerful engines it's just ridiculous. It kind of puts it more into perspective how good the EGs and the DC2s and the EKs are when you drive something which definitely shouldn't have that engine. You know, you're trying to do the same thing and it's just, I don't want to sound like I'm disappointed. I mean, it's exactly what I thought it would be. It's a Honda Jazz with a lot of power. It's ridiculous. There's something special about that because, you know, it's still at the end of the day a very powerful Honda Jazz, and it's a bit silly and whatever. But it definitely doesn't drive like an EK, an EG, a DC2, any of those double wishbone 90s Hondas. It doesn't feel like it wants to go fast. It feels a lot more like, yeah, you're doing something you shouldn't be here. And I don't know if it's the electric steering or if it's the suspension configuration or if, you know, that rigid chassis is certainly not making up for all the other things that it's lacking compared to, say, a Civic or an Integra. And I know I keep comparing it to the Civic and the Integra, but I think that's what a lot of you will be comparing it to as well, because we've got this K24, this K-series engine in a chassis where it shouldn't be, but it was never designed to be. And you know, it's quite an easy comparison to make. Now, what do I think to Jazzes in general? Well, it's definitely not a car for me. You've got loads of luggage room, I guess. Apparently the seats fold fully flat, so there's a good one for you. Yeah, it's ridiculous, this car. A big thanks to Pete for letting me drive it. Definitely an experience. I'm glad to say I've driven a K-series powered Jazz now. I think it's a nice looking car. As far as a Jazz goes, we saw what Josh's Jazz looks like. It's not quite the same, is it? It looks really nice yellow on these wheels. I didn't know that they had this colour-coded headlight lens as well. That's quite cool. I never noticed that before, but I guess it'd look like a completely different car without that. It's almost like a Moretti, but with a plastic lens over the top. To conclude then, what do we think of the Jazz? Well, I mean, I've seen the memes, you've probably seen the memes. Now, it might have this rigid chassis, but does that make up for everything else that it's lacking? No, I don't think it does. Is it still a great experience with the K24 motor? Absolutely. I think you can probably stick that engine in anything and it maybe not Sam's truck, but most cars you could stick that motor in and it'll just absolutely transform it. Now, it's a great experience to drive. Really thankful to Pete for letting me have a go. And yeah, like I say, he's getting rid of it. So by the time you're watching this, unfortunately, it'll probably already be sold. But yeah, really grateful for Pete for letting me have a go, make a video with it. We planned to do this a couple of years ago, it never happened. And you know, everything else going on in the past year, it's been a bit difficult. But here we are today, and I hope you've enjoyed watching the K24 Jazz. And yeah, more stuff to come soon from this garage in the future, and more reviews to come in the future as well. So if you're not subscribed, then you might want to consider it. If not, just keep your eye out for me. I might get a new hat. I'm gonna get a haircut soon as well, so something else to look forward to. Right guys, so thanks for watching. Goodbye from me and the Jazz, and I'll see you in another video.
Yeah. The coil pack's there, 4, and then look on the back.
What the fuck?
8 plugs, 8 coils.
Jesus. Nice, man. Orange dipstick as well.
Yeah.
This has about 80 of the finest garden centre getting horsepowers. I'm trying to think of anecdotes to do with Honda. Anecdotes to do with Honda Jazzes.
Granny.
I've done grannies, not literally. I've had a slight camera malfunction.